Life goes on, or does it? The gang-infested South Side is nothing new to Officer Michael Newman. He's been serving as a guardian to the law-abiding residents of this neighborhood for the past 7 years. Yet there's something different about tonight. It isn't the rain or the darkness that surrounds him. Those are just normal aspects of working the late shift. It isn't even the call of shots fired that he and his partner Derek Thomas are responding to. They've answered these types of reports on many occasions, but for some reason there's an uneasiness in the atmosphere that he just can't shake.
Thomas, sensing his partner's discomfort, finally breaks the silence. "So what's wrong with you, Mike? You don't seem like yourself tonight." Officer Thomas has been a member of the Chicago Police Department for nearly 5 years, 4 of which is Newman's partner, so he can tell when there's something bothering him. "I don't know, Derek," Newman responds as he rubs his tired eyes with his right hand. "I really don't know how to put what I'm feeling into words, but something just doesn't feel right." "How can you say that, Mike?" Thomas adds laughingly. "You know that as long as you've got me by your side, you don't have a thing to worry about, because I'll protect you." Newman faintly smiles at his friend's joke as he turns the patrol vehicle into a small alley. He immediately turns on the spotlight and begins shining it throughout the alley, searching between buildings and looking behind dumpsters, but to no avail. The area is silent and seems to be deserted, except perhaps for a few rodents that populate the garbage-strewn streets. "Well, it looks like a false alarm," Derek says as Newman continues to search the area with the spotlight. "Maybe," Newman says questioningly as he brings their vehicle to a stop, "but let's take a look around just to be sure." The two officers leave the comfort of the patrol vehicle, with flashlights drawn in order to conduct a more thorough search. As they slowly step away from their cruiser into the distraction of the rain, exposing themselves to the openness of the alley, they hear the blast of a gunshot from somewhere in the darkness, and the pavement just in front of them explodes. Both officers instinctively dive behind a large dumpster, which provides the nearest form of cover that they can find, and they draw their weapons. Officer Thomas keys his portable radio and shouts, "Dispatch, Unit 838, Code 1033. Emergency lights and sirens. Shots fired and officers need assistance." "Go ahead, Unit 838, with your location," dispatch responds. "We're in the alley just north of the corner of Rush and Burlington across from the old Adams high-rise." 10-4, Unit 838, dispatch responds. They then sound an alert tone that broadcasts over every police radio in the area to tell officers to cease all non-essential radio traffic. They then hit the signal a second time, and the dispatcher announces, "All units, shots fired. Officers need assistance in the alley just north of the corner of Rush and Burlington, across from the old Adams high-rise." 10 units respond almost immediately, advising that they are 1076 en route to that location. Officer Newman and Thomas remain in a crouched position, attempting to peer over and around the dumpster as carefully as they can. Suddenly another shot rings out and explodes into the side of the dumpster just inches from Officer Thomas's head. But this time Newman sees the muzzle flash, and he aims his weapon right at it. "I've got him in my sights," Newman says as he slowly squeezes the trigger of his 9mm until it fires a round in the direction where he'd previously seen the flash from the assailant's weapon. There's the sound of a thump, as though someone has fallen to the ground, and then there's absolute silence. "I think you got him, Mike," Thomas says excitedly. "I think so too, but be careful, Derek," Newman warns. The two officers leave the shelter of their dumpster, slowly and cautiously approaching the location of their attacker. Suddenly the sound of police sirens can be heard in the distance, and by the time the officers make it to where the suspect had been shooting from, the area is flooded with police lights. Officer Newman had indeed shot the perpetrator, but as the two officers approach the suspect's body, Officer Newman cries out in a state of shock, "No!" Officer Newman suddenly awakes and finds himself in the comfort of his own bed, crying out as though his dream had been real. "Honey, are you all right?" Debbie, Michael's wife, asks as she sits up beside him. Newman just sits there shivering, trying to come to grips with what he'd just seen. Then, after sitting in silence for several moments, he finally replies, "Yeah, I'm okay." Once she's finally sure that her husband is all right, Debbie turns on the lamp beside their bed. "Did you have that nightmare again, Michael?" she asks. "I wish it was only a nightmare," Michael responds while sitting on the side of their bed, never looking at his wife, "because I can deal with dreams, but memories are a little harder to take." Newman gets out of bed and walks into the bathroom that's just off their master bedroom. He slumps over the sink and cups a small amount of water into his hands and splashes it into his face. And then he looks up and just stares into the mirror, peering into the eyes that's staring back at him. Honey, you've got to get past this, Debbie says as she enters the room. You were only doing your job. My job wasn't to kill a 9-year-old child, Debbie. But your job was to protect your partner, and that child, as you call him, was trying to kill both of you as part of a gang initiation. If you hadn't killed him, then he would have killed one or maybe even both of you, or maybe even someone else. Or maybe if I'd have just waited on my backup, he'd have surrendered peacefully, Michael responds. Or perhaps he would have fled down that alley and gotten away just to strike again, Debbie retorts. Okay, Debbie, I get the point. But knowing that I took the life of a child isn't something that I can just get past. I know that, and that's why I love you so much. You're a good man, Michael, and I'll never condemn you for that. I just don't like to see you hurting so badly, especially when you didn't have any choice. There's always a choice, Newman says under his breath. Debbie kisses her husband on the cheek and wraps her arms around him as he buries his face into the shoulder of her nightshirt. She knows his pain. She'd been by his side supporting him through the public outrage that was proclaimed by those who knew nothing about the facts. She had to watch as the press publicly blasted the man that she loved by calling him a baby killer on the front page. But when the investigation finally cleared him, all the papers could do was hint at a cover-up. They didn't want the truth. All they wanted was a public lynching, and guilt or innocence was irrelevant. But the saddest thing was that Mike had bought into their propaganda. He hated himself for what had happened, yet there was nothing that he could do to change it, nor could he see anything that could help him get past it. Debbie had hoped that when they moved away from the city, her husband would be able to leave the tormenting demon behind. But sadly, she learned that running away doesn't always serve as a means of escape. Debbie's thoughts are suddenly interrupted by the sound of the alarm going off by their bed. I didn't realize it was that late, Debbie says, looking at the clock. I'm going downstairs to make breakfast for Dakota before church. Are you going to be all right? Michael nods at her question, and then he responds, I'll be downstairs in a few minutes. As Debbie's in the kitchen preparing breakfast, Dakota, their 14-year-old son, comes up and hugs her from behind. Is Dad okay, he asks. Yeah, he's fine, Cody, Debbie says, trying to sound reassuring. I'm sorry that we woke you this morning. That's no big deal. It just gives him some extra time to get ready, Dakota replies nonchalantly. Debbie smiles at her son's understanding and motions for him to take a seat at the table. You know, Dad has to forgive himself, Mom, or this thing will continue to torment him. I know that, Cody. But our justifying what happened is easier than him letting it go. You know, Mom, there's a special guest speaker at church today. Maybe you can talk Dad into taking off work and coming with us. At that moment, Michael walks into the kitchen already in uniform, preparing to leave for work, and he hears his son's idea. Look, Cody, I appreciate your concern, but I've got no interest in going to church. That's your thing, not mine. But Dad, going to church used to be your thing too, Cody interjects. That was a long time ago, Cody, Newman responds, visibly trying not to get mad, and that part of my life is over. Dad, I appreciate the fact that you're upset, but God's the only way that you're ever going to get past this. Cody, Michael says angrily, where was God when I was in that alley killing that kid? If he didn't deliver me then, what makes you think that he can deliver me now? Debbie takes the pans off the stove and gently touches her husband's arm. Michael, realizing he was out of line, contains his anger. Look, Cody, I'm sorry for acting like that. This thing isn't your fault, and I'm not going to treat you as if it is. I know that you're just worried about me, but I'm fine. I am worried, Dad, and I care more about you than you can ever imagine, and that's why I really want you to come to church with me today. Cody, Michael says in a controlled yet firm voice, I love you, but I don't love this God of yours, and as far as I'm concerned, I never will. If you want to go fishing sometime, let me know. But if you want to go to church, then talk to your mom, because I'm not interested. Michael then regains his composure and tells Cody, I'll see you tonight. I have to go to work. Michael then storms out of the house, leaving his wife and his son in the wake of his anger. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to upset him, Cody says to his mom. Cody, this doesn't have anything to do with you. Your father's fighting his own demons, and you're not one of them. No, but I can help him if he'll allow me to. Give your dad time, Cody. He'll come around. It's been 2 years, Cody demands. Then give him 2 more, Debbie says, becoming frustrated. I just hope that he has 2 more, Cody yells as he walks towards the door. I'm not mad, but right now I'm also not hungry. I'll see you at church. Cody closes his door as he leaves the house. Debbie sits down at the kitchen table and places her head in her hands, fighting back the tears as she quietly prays. Lord, this thing is destroying my family. Please allow my husband to know that you are not his enemy. Allow him to see the adversary as he truly is. As the last words of her prayers leave her lips, the tears finally take over, and she begins to sob uncontrollably.